That's a drastic shift to the things that were written at the foot of the Statue of Liberty. When you're talking about, bring me your poor and you're sick and you're hungry, now bring me your wealthy.
All right, welcome to Queen City News Plus. We got court is in session today. Order in the court with myself, Brien Blakely.
And I'm Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Rhodes.
Khalif, always good to see you, buddy. Unfortunately, we're really talking about some very sad and tragic situation that played out in Texas over the weekend. At least 100 people have died from this flash flooding, natural disaster that occurred, and those numbers are rising. And when you have these type of things, unfortunately, there's going to be some lawsuits to follow on the back end of this, and we're going to start talking about that, unfortunately, right now today.
Brien, listen, horrific situation that obviously no family would want to go through, no person should have to go through. But my heart goes out to the folks that are involved in this situation. As the death toll continues to climb, you start to think about the families that are impacted by this, but also you start to think about the conversations that folks are having in the background, the behind the scenes. Well, what did we know? What should we have known? What could we prevent it? What should we have prevented? And those are the conversations that are probably happening on a state level. Those are the conversations that are probably happening on the organizational level. I mean, we know a number of folks were at a camp. That camp, whatever connection that camp had to people in that community, while they are grieving, oftentimes in situations like this, because we are a litigious society, folks are going to be looking for accountability. People are going to be looking for closure. Normally, those two things, accountability and closure, are connected to lawsuits, and lawsuits are normally connected to dollars. And so you ask, the first thing is, well, who's responsible and who's liable? I mean, anyone that's attending that camp, yeah, you sign any type of waiver as a parent. Yeah, I send my children there. I give you an opportunity to protect them if they get hurt. I waive any liability, but not in this situation. And so you say, well, did you have a duty to protect my children? Did you breach that duty? Did your failure to protect them, was it the actual cause of the death or their injury? In this situation being death? And then what are the damages, right? Now, when you go through those steps, the biggest thing about that causation, it would be, was it foreseeable? Is it foreseeable that something like this could happen? And was it preventable? Did you take the steps that were necessary to prevent this foreseeable risk? Because these people was called invitees. They were invited into the company, the agency's protection. And because they were invitees, you have a duty to protect them. So now, as that duty has increased.
Don't you have to sign waivers or anything like that? Or anything?
You sign waivers, but it's just like when in law school, they give us the example of like, hey, you want to get on this ride? Well, man, you're going to have to sign a waiver. You always got that one person that's like, well, give me a second. Let me read the waiver. I don't know if I want to get on the ride. And they always say, well, if you don't sign it, you're probably not getting on anyway, right? Mm-hmm. But you can't sign away all of your rights. And so, yeah, you're signing away rights for like little minor scrapes and things like that, probably and potentially. But what you're not signing away is the right to sue for wrongful death, which would fall under some type of negligence claim. And because you're not giving up that right, it would have to walk through the normal tort process like any other case would. I mean, the immediate response from the company, anyone that would file a lawsuit, their defense would be, if I represent them, would be assumption of risk. I know it's unfortunate to have that discussion, but that's what you'd be saying, that if you're at this camp that's near the lake or near the river, that you're assuming part of the risk by being and participating in this. But on the other side, the family is saying this is foreseeable. You're pointing to incidents in the past where the lake maybe have overflown before, where floods have occurred in the past, where people have been injured in the past. So walking through this, it's going to be literally like walking through a landmine, because while you have to separate the emotions and look at the facts, it's going to be hard to do that because we're all human. And so while you're looking at this is so raw and it's so recent, the families that are going through this, the attorneys that they hire, which ultimately I assume people will hire, those families will have to go through this portion of reliving and being re-traumatized throughout the whole process.
Yeah, and this is going to take some time here before, obviously you have the grieving you go through. These families are going through just tremendous amount of shock and trauma right now to understand exactly what's happened. But you've already seen some of the information that has come out. A lot of people were talking about whether the Weather Service had enough time. Was the Trump administration cuts having to do anything about that? They've come out and said that no, they got the warnings out. It's this, and time, and it was just one of those once in a 100-year flood situation, where they were able to get their warnings out in time and told everyone whether it was going to be a warning versus a catastrophic warning, and it showed the timing. But also one of the things too is that this was that camp that we're talking about, Camp Mystic, was sitting in a floodplain in FEMA, so. There's an assumed risk, I guess, when you're sitting there going to stay at that place.
I think that will be the defense that defense brings out is that, hey, you recognize that you were going to a camp that's sitting in the middle of a floodplain. Regarding the situations with the getting out the warning from the Weather Service, all those folks would be protected and enshrouded in some type of protection with that federal government immunity type of process. So it'd be hard to bring a claim against them. I don't think they'd waive their immunity. And so because of that, the only person I think or entities would be the camp. Or any other type of agency that had a communication or.
What about an independent campground where people were camping along the
Definitely
not just that campground, in particular,
not just the camp, but the campgrounds. Any independent company that was connected to this that's not a federal agency, I think would be fair game for a potential lawsuit. And then you'd have to say, even if you attempted to add the Weather Service as a potential defendant, that would make it extremely problematic because now you're having to say, well, what is the standard? What is the standard of releasing this information? Like, is it 1 hour before a storm? Is it 2 hours? Is it 20 minutes? I mean, they're probably releasing this information under the best time frame that they get it. They receive it, they review it, they check to make sure it's accurate, and they want to get it out there so people can have it in their hands. So that's going to be hard to add them as a defendant, and the likelihood of being successful against someone like that would be hard. And so I would assume, just like anything else, not saying that folks are ambulance chasing like the negative narrative that comes from attorneys, but guarantee that there's someone out there right now, and not from an opportunistic perspective, but from a real life perspective, like, where is accountability? Where is liability? And do I have a claim? Like, if you're the parent and you lost your child, and after the grieving process has started, while it's still there, you're still trying to figure out, well, looking for answers and searching for accountability, right? Reaching out to these type of folks sometimes is the only avenue for folks to feel like they can get some type of recourse for the loss of a loved one. So I would anticipate that even if there's an investigation on the state level and the federal level, that there will be lawsuits probably before those investigations end, because you can always amend your complaint. You can always update it and supplement it with whatever the investigation holds. But if you can get your foot through the door, specifically say if they're an agency that doesn't have much resources. Well, if you got almost 100+ people that may be bringing claim, typically
class action lawsuit type of thing.
First to file is normally who would prevail. And so say if you're behind me with your filing, you're 20 people behind me. But if they only have a pot of, say, a few $1 million, it's going to be hard for you to get some type of financial recourse if there's nothing left.
Yeah, I understand. And certainly our hearts and prayers go out to those families right now that are suffering a great deal of what happened from this tragedy. And we'll just have to see how it plays out over the next few months and even years, because this is going to take a long time for something like this to play out. All right, Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Rhodes, we're sitting here with order in the court. We're going to take a short break here. And when we come back, Khalif, you and I are going to be talking about another case involving the Trump administration with the DOJ. They sent out a memo widening the net for deportations, and that has certainly been a talker, and we're going to talk about that coming up after the break. You're watching Order in the Court. Court is in session. All right, welcome back to Queen City News Plus. We got Order in the Court with Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Rhodes and myself, Brien Blakely. And today, on the second subject that we're going to talk about, Trump had ordered the DOJ to send out a memo regarding deportations. They're widening the net to some of these deportations, and that's where is the issue. And a lot of people are talking about who could be deported, possibly even American citizens, with this kind of vague as far as memo. And let's talk about that memo a little bit.
Vague is an understatement of the century, Brien. So the Department of Justice, they're trying to widen their net. I mean, if you're going to send folks to Alligator, Alcatraz, you want to ensure that you have a net to be able to capture as many people as you can. But all jokes aside, they send out this memorandum back on June 11th that it says, This is from the Assistant Attorney General. President Trump and Attorney General Pam Bondi have directed the Civil Division, that's who will oversee this, to use its enforcement authorities to advance the administration's policies. What policies are they talking about? Well, combating discriminatory practices. That's obviously diversity, equity, inclusion. And they want to go after corporate companies. They're also talking about ending anti-Semitism on the college campuses and all throughout the country, protecting women and children. But this last one, and what we're talking about here with this story, is this prioritizing the denaturalization. We're talking about American citizens. We're talking about people that have went through the process. These are not the folks that the Trump campaign talked about deporting and getting rid of and removing from the country when they ran. It was during the campaign. It was all of the illegals that have come here that are criminals, that are violent, right? Remember when they had the White House lawn filled with the pictures of all these people that were being deported, and it was all of the criminals, the people that the people no one wants in their country, right? But what we're recognizing as we start to unfold a number of these things is they're going after folks that are non-criminals, but they're also going after folks that didn't just come here illegally, but people that have come here legally. And so that's how we get to this process here. And so they say, look, the department's going to use a number of things. This civil division should prioritize and maximally pursue the denaturalization process in all cases permitted by law and supported by evidence. And they cite the statute, 8 U.S.C. 1451, that lists a number of reasons and ways that you can revoke the naturalization of a person that has gained citizenship. And a couple of them are listed in here. This first one is people who pose a potential danger to national security, individuals who are engaged in torture. That's how we get this Nazi stuff, how we get these type of McCarthyism type of things where we were talking about in the 60s and 70s, I should say late 70s, and now we're coming full circle to that. We're talking about people that were engaged in criminal enterprises with gangs and terrorists, individuals who commit felonies and did not disclose them during the naturalization process, people who were engaged in human trafficking, people who engaged in paycheck protection program fraud, cases against individuals with any type of fraud. But then this is the other thing that I think anyone that cases that were referred to the United States Attorney General's office with pending criminal charges, if those charges do not fit within the other of the things. So when you talk about widening of the net, Section 9 on here and then also Section 1, I think will give the Trump administration an opportunity to go after basically anyone that they want that has went through the naturalization process. I mean, if you stated something on your application that was not 100% above board, the Trump administration is going to come after you with everything that it has to remove.
And it also comes on the heels of the big, beautiful bill, the budget that increases the immigration budget, which they are allowed to, gives them more money to do their immigration efforts. And also one of the things too is that a lot of people may not know is that the Department of Justice has used a tool to sniff out former Nazis for a long time as part of the way to for that specific purpose. Now they're trying to, a lot of critics, especially Democrats, are trying to criticize the Trump administration, saying they're utilizing this one tool to sniff out Nazis as opposed to sniff out American citizens that they feel that they don't believe in what their administration is pushing.
You're talking about Eli Rosenbaum during the 1970s. He utilized this in the people and the numbers that he was able to go after was pales in comparison to what the Trump administration is attempting to do and is already currently doing. I mean, he deported using this same statute and these same rules 100 people during the Nazi thing. And this was, some of the most prolific type of Nazi, not just sympathizers, but people that participated in war crimes, right? President Biden brought that same individual back, Eli Rosenbaum, in 2022 to assist with the same process for war crimes against Ukraine. So now the Trump administration is using that same policy, the same statute, the same approach to not get rid of war criminals, but to get rid of folks that may have manipulated, lied, or didn't fully disclose information on their application for citizenship. So we're saying these folks have already become citizens, have already lived here, and now we're going to go back and retroactively review their process. That part is, I won't say it's something that is new, but it's definitely a different approach. So when we talk about widening the net, yeah, that's a wider net. Trump, went through the deportation process, I should say the denaturalization process on his first term, 100 people. Biden, 24 people. They're already 5 months in, and they've denaturalized 5 folks. But I would anticipate that those numbers will increase drastically now, but they've given this other guidance. This guidance is telling you to go after anybody that's out there that poses a danger to national security. Well, where's that in? Like, who poses the danger to national security? Is it the current mayor candidate for the mayor of New York City? That might be one. Pam Bondi's got her eyes set on them.
Politicization of the citizenship rights here.
It is extremely politicized. And now you have to find a way how you can get it back to the center. At some point during Trump's run in his current state, he talked about, not just trying to get rid of naturalized citizens, but he's talked about trying to get rid of American citizens, folks that were born here. We have the birthright citizen case that's pending and will probably work its way back up to the Supreme Court. Well, Trump in his administration is saying, not only are we going to widen the net for these naturalized citizens, at some point we may be trying to get after American-born citizens if you were given citizenship through birthright. So it's slowly and surely going towards a holistic approach, every angle approach to trying to get rid of folks that the Trump administration doesn't want to be here. But to politicize it, the last thing I'll say is it's becoming extremely problematic because on the one hand, you talk about these folks, they being fraudulent or misrepresenting on their applications. But on the other hand, a few months back, the Trump administration talked about some golden ticket, being able to purchase and be able to buy your way to America and to be able to purchase your way to citizenship.
Buy a $5 million visa or whatever,
Similar to the old program where it used to be $500,000. There's a number of folks in Charlotte that started businesses here in Mecklenburg County in the state of North Carolina that utilized that program, but then they got rid of it. It died off. Well, now what's the option? Bring that program back, but increase the number. That program was great. This is what Trump said, but we weren't charging enough. So now what are we going to do? Instead of $500,000, if you can invest $5 million and you can invest jobs into this community, you can come here. That's a drastic shift to the things that were written at the foot of the Statue of Liberty. When you talk about, bring me your poor and you're sick and you're hungry, now bring me your wealthy.
Well, we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about Charlotte FC soccer. You know how passionate these fans are, Khalif.
Outrageous.
Very passionate, especially in the supporters group. But are they a little bit too passionate? And that was a problem at a game recently where a fan got hit in the head with a beer can. And so, just got, the celebrations were a little too much. And we'll be right back with more of Order in the Court when we're talking about it. All right, welcome back to Order in the Court. Court is in session right now with Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Rhodes and myself, Brien Blakely. And we're talking about Charlotte FC. And you know how passionate the supporters can get at the Charlotte FC games. But recently, one fan had to leave the supporters section because they were hit by a thrown object there. And you want to be able to know that you can go to a soccer game and enjoy your time, but not be hurt when you come out of there. But on the other side there, people love being very, very passionate at soccer games, and unfortunately, a little bit too overzealous.
I'm not laughing at the person or people that were injured. I promise you, I'm not. I can say this is like straight out of law school type of question. It's can I sue? I mentioned this a number of times. We're a litigious society. Folks want to be able to bring lawsuits when they are injured, when they're hurt, when they're harmed. The best way to feel like you've gotten your recourse is to pay me my money. Jerry Maguire, show me the money. Everybody wants to sue, right? So it's a couple questions. Can I sue if I'm injured from a team? I think that one is pretty clear. The answer is yes. Like, you've seen a number of lawsuits from baseball games where people have got hit by baseball in the stands, and now they're like, okay, I'm suing because I lost an eye or something. That's happened a number of times.
But what about somebody who, scores a goal, as you're looking at from a prior game here, not this past weekend, and they're shooting, beer everywhere. But what if they start throwing bottles?
I think that's a different question, right? So the first one, I think that all day, I think that's an easy answer. You can sue, and I think that the team would try to say, well, hey.
Not that they're selling bottles too. It would be a can at the game.
But I think the team would say assumption of risk. That's their argument.
Yeah.
Nope. They assumed the risk when they bought the ticket. It says in there that you know that you could be injured when you come to this game. Now, can you sue if you're injured by another fan? I think yes, but I think it's still
Sue the other fan.
I think you could sue the other fan. I think you could sue the company. I think you could sue the team, the stadium operator, security, alcohol vendor, the individual attacker. In law school, they tell you to sue everybody and allow those folks to.
Is that what
they teach you that? They tell you, first of all, they tell you to go after the one with the biggest pot.
Right.
So
right.
if I'm suing the team. I'm not suing the individual attacker because they got maybe 100,000. The team's got 100 million. Different, they're not apples to apples. And then you're letting the court decide, well, who can stay on this case and who should be removed. And so you're not going to automatically remove them. I'm going to attempt. Now, I'm not going to frivolously add, like if it happened in Charlotte, I'm not going to say, well, add the New York Giants to it. I'm not going to say do that. I'm not going to say add Inter Milan. What I will say is I'll add the team, I'll add the owners, I'll add security, I'll add everybody, and then allow them to file claims to be removed. I'll ask them to say, you know what, Your Honor, we had nothing to do with this. So then I'd say, well, what am I suing for? I think negligent security is probably one where you guys have failed to maintain and keep me safe. And so then it's did you?
How much were you harmed? Were the ambulance bills, that sort of thing, the medical record,
well, that's
bills?
To the amount, right? But we first got to get past, did you have a duty? Did you breach that duty? Was it causation? Were you the actual cause? And then am I hurt? That portion that you talked about, the hospital bills, medical bills, the ambulance, all that stuff comes into your damages. But then I'm also counting on future losses. I'm asking for the amounts to be paid for future harm. Okay, if I got an eye that I can't see out of, now has it diminished my ability and my ability to make money as I go forward? So the biggest question is, was the things that occurred foreseeable? Was it reasonably foreseeable? Did they or should they have known that hey, I could potentially get hurt if I get hit by a can or if I get hit by some object that's thrown in the air? So you've seen the videos at these Charlotte FC games, and there's beer all in the air, right? Mm-hmm. It's flying around. That supporter section is extremely supportive. They're
right.
Rowdy. You want a team that's doing that. So, and they're throwing them up on the scoreboard. So if I'm representing them in this claim, the first thing I'm saying is, hey, you guys knew or you were aware of this because you saw them at the game. I'd go back and I'd get video of every game to show every time they scored a goal that this is folks jumping and throwing and splashing. Okay, so now you were on notice that this happened. I will want them to be able to say now, have you done things to prevent what is foreseeable? Well, if you're giving people these cans, that a can thrown in the air could eventually hit someone in the face, well, maybe it's foreseeable that you don't give out cans. Maybe it's foreseeable that you pour them in plastic cups. I mean, because there are certain stadiums that do that, specifically because they're trying to avoid the liability that something like this could happen from. So the foreseeability is one thing, and then what did you do with it after you knew that it was foreseeable? And then the last thing is they'd be arguing that the defense, the team is going to say assumption of risk. They're going to say not foreseeable, and they're going to say it was a third-party actor. I didn't throw the cup in the air. I didn't throw the beer in the air. This was this supporter section. I can get around that with the foreseeability argument because all day I'm saying you guys knew that this could have happened. So I think this, if these individuals attempted to sue, there's an opportunity for them to get at least to liability to the team. There's liability to the stadium operator and to the individual attacker for sure.
Well, take a look at this right here. This is from the Mid-City Collective. The culture of the supporters section is about passion, inclusivity, and safety in all caps there. And our supporters should not be concerned about going to the ER as a result of attending a match. There have been at least 6 injuries requiring medical attention, including an incident last night where one of our members left the match in an ambulance. Supporters in the 200 level, where they are, that throw these objects at every match should have shown that they cannot be responsible with liquids, cups, and even food. Mid-City Collective stands with our injured members and calls for an immediate ban of all the liquid object throwing. A club campaign informing supporters of the problem, expected behavior, and stopping the party based on marketing that has contributed to this behavior.
See that last stop?
Yes, that there.
Marketing that has contributed to this behavior. Foreseeability, ding, ding, ding. They're saying, hey, you guys knew. Not only did you knew, you are monetizing and making money off of this negative thing that you should be stopping. And so this seems like Mid-City Collective, this support group, is telling you they've looked at the standards. They understand what needs to occur if they were to bring some type of claim. And one of those things is foreseeability. You guys knew. And not only did you know, you didn't do anything about it. Matter of fact, you encouraged it. If I represent them in this case, all day I'm pointing to those factors. I'm pointing to the factors that you guys should have stopped this. It's clearly foreseeable. And no, I didn't assume risk when I bought my ticket to be injured from a beer that was thrown in the sky and hit me in the face.
So where does this go then?
I think if there's a potential lawsuit that's filed, first of all, you put the team in a lose-lose situation. You don't want the team going in a lawsuit against its fans, right? That's not what you want. So you wanted, this was obviously a case where you're settling as fast as you can, because in the court of public opinion, even if the law is on your side, if you can say they assumed risk, in the court of public opinion, you will be destroyed, because now fans
and also
will be saying, I don't want that.
Medical records here too. And some of these, they've also posted some of the medical records as well. So you have those to go with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of that stuff helps. That shows that there is an injury. Remember, it's not just duty or breach or causation. You got to show damages. I can't say that you've done something wrong and you breached your ability or duty to protect me, but then I don't show that you hurt me. That's the standing portion I got to have, but I also have to have an injury in fact. And what's my injury in fact? Damages. What are my damages? Medical bills. That helps you. It can't just be emotional. It can't be that your feelings are hurt. You have to have an actual damage or actual injury to be able to prevail at trial. But yeah, this case right here is one that if you're in the risk management department of Charlotte FC or any team, you're looking at that saying, okay, this is nice. This helps get seats in the crowd, right? You get butts in the seats.
It is fun to watch.
Right?
Yeah.
But what you're not trying to do is cost your team money by not preventing something that was clearly prevented.
Celebrate responsibly. Celebrate when they have a goal. Celebrate Peppers when they play that at the beginning of the game.
Right.
And celebrate by singing the national anthem, which is always, it's a fun thing to do, but also celebrate responsibly as well. All right. We'll just have to see where this one goes, especially for the next Charlotte FC home game. We'll be watching that one for sure. You've been watching Order in the Court with Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Rhodes, and I'm Brien Blakely. You've been watching Queen City News Plus.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.